Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We have our second day in the tank tab. We're taking a look this time at a little bit of a lighter option, still in really the medium bracket, not what I would call a light tank. And we have the common choice, the Leopard C2 Mexas, and we're comparing it today with the Chieftain Mark 11, which, at least from what I've seen, is a little bit less common of a pick, but may well have some reasons that you might want to consider it. And of course that's what this series is all about. So Quicksilver is with us here today to walk us through the stats on these two, which one he would recommend, and up or down vetted, as well as maybe a little bit about the role, particularly for the more unusual Chieftain Mark 11. So, Quicksilver, you want to take it away?
So having a look at the hard stats like your AP, your armor, by all accounts, the Chieftain Mark 11 looks better for 5 points cheaper. But where the C2 Mexas comes in is in the more subtle stats such as speed and autonomy. The Chieftain Mark 11's only got that 480 kilometer autonomy with 45 kilometer hour speed, so it's gonna run out of fuel a lot quicker than the C2 Mexas.
So,
And
let's just talk real quickly about the off-road speed, because this is something that I always struggle with when picking tanks myself, and the rationale, I guess, is if their road speed is the same, they're both mechanized, they both have mechanized on-road speed, and you can get to where you're going faster. Does it really matter if you're a little bit different speed once you're off the tracks? Is that a big game changer?
it definitely can be. Having that extra 15 kilometers an hour off-road speed can be the difference between a dead tank and a live tank, because you got to keep in mind, if you're, say, retreating into a forest or retreating out of a forest and you've got infantry fighting you, that 15-hour speed difference can be the difference of the infantry shooting you again and finally finishing you off.
I guess just the mental math on that. If I'm being chased by special forces, as an example, and they have wheels for feet, they go 30 kilometers per hour, this guy's gonna maybe struggle getting away. And the Leopard C2 could withdraw a lot faster.
Yeah. The only other noticeable difference as well is the 10 round a minute versus 7 round per minute fire rate. So the Leopard C2 Mexas will be much better at dealing with spam and like lighter vehicles and stunning stuff, and the Chieftain is much heavier hitting, so it'll be able to get those, could go a little bit better against tanks, but both still have 14 frontal armor.
This seems like, honestly, the Chieftain Mark 11 seems like the sort of tank where I have a position smoked, or I haven't yet been discovered, and I have an opportunity to take one good shot, and I make it count the most that I can, while the Leopard C2 is more sustained fire. I guess.
Yeah.
Is that why people tend to go to the C2, you think, even though it is that 5 points more expensive?
I think so, and also the C2 used to be a lot cheaper until the South Africa patch. I think it was 80 points or 75 points, I can't quite remember, so there's still a bit of nostalgia for when it used to be absolutely busted.
So, I guess a follow-up question for me, one thing that a lot of people talk about, not for this coalition, but for Israel, is the ability to knife fight in the woods, and part of that, from my understanding, comes from the Merkava 2A, which of course is a tank transport, but also just things like the M1 Abrams equivalent, stuff with high frontal armor for the point cost. Now, neither one of these I'd say really has that at 14, but with 19 AP power, the Chieftain Mark 11 almost seems like a knife fighter that busts things like BMPTs without too much trouble. Is that a role for this, or not really?
It definitely can be, but you also don't want to get stuck in the forest because you got that 45 kilometer an hour off-road speed. Again.
So, a bit of a trap, maybe. Maybe you call one of these in right when you're about to push and you don't expect it to really live past that.
Yeah, you also got to keep in mind it has 4 HE as well, so I would use this as more of a defending an open field. You got the high AP that, is more effective at long range versus the fire rate, which would be better at close range on the C2.
That's fair, that's fair. And, those sorts of ideas are how units get misused all the time. I do that all the time. I think, oh, well, this looks like it might be appropriate for something, and it turns out maybe it's not the best option. So my question to you, we have 5 slots in the tank tab, we have super heavies in there, we have a couple other units in there, and we need to decide between these two tanks for the last slot in our tank tab. Which one do we pick, and do we take up or down vetted?
I would typically go to C2 Mexas. I think the versatility is it's like a better all-rounder tank compared to the Chieftain Mark 11, and there's better higher AP options and tank destroying options in other tabs, so you don't really need a dedicated anti-tank
Fair enough.
tank.
Well, that's our unit comparison for today. Hope you guys found it informative, and we'll have another one for you tomorrow.